And now the news is good with Matthew Martin.
Hi, I'm Matthew Martin, and the news is good. Tonight, it can't be a betrayal if you aren't already friends. Let's start with the reading. John 13, 1 and 2. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And the supper being ended, the devil having now been put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, ... Look at the contrast between the love of Jesus for his people and the evil satanic heart of one of those people, now ready to betray the one who loves him so much. I saw a quote the other day that said, Judas is a reminder that betrayals often come from people who have eaten at your table and heard your prayers. That's tough to hear, but it's true. Basically, you can't really be called a betrayal if you aren't close. If you're already enemies, it's not a betrayal, it's just an attack. And when your enemy attacks you, it's expected. It targets your outer man. But when your friend attacks you, it hurts twice as much because it stings from without and within and pierces your heart. Think about that the next time you read the account of Jesus at his Last Supper, when he shares bread with Judas and then watches him leave the table to carry out his betrayal. Think about the next time you read the account of Jesus at the garden, when Judas and his motley crew of scoundrels comes to arrest him. And Judas identifies the right man for the taking by giving him a kiss on the cheek, the greeting of a friend, meant to betray. David wrote about this in Psalm 41, verses 7 through 9. All that hate me whisper together against me. Against me do they devise my hurt. An evil disease, they say, cleaves fast unto him. And now that he lies, he shall rise up no more. Yea, my own familiar friend, in whom I have trusted, which did eat of my bread, has lifted up his heel against me. David's enemies are not just enemy combatants, standing opposite a battlefield. They are peers, confidants, associates. He perceives, either by the Spirit's guidance or his own intuition, that they are not his friends. They are whispering against him, plotting to accelerate his suffering to cause an even quicker death. Is he paranoid? No. It's not paranoia if people really are plotting against you. They talk about his illness as though his death is a foregone conclusion. They expect he'll never rise again from his sickbed. How do you think it felt for David to be in the midst of this great hardship and look around and see his peers plotting against him, smiling with their lips but scheming with their eyes? It probably felt like the Lord, who looked around his table at the Last Supper and saw Judas Iscariot acting as if he was just one of the 12, just another disciple, just a faithful follower. Jesus could see the smile on Judas' lips, but he could also see the sin in his heart. Judas was Jesus' own familiar friend, in whom he trusted, and with whom he broke bread, and Judas lifted up his heel and acted defiance against him. Of course, David's words here are quoted by the Master, drawing a direct parallel to David's plight in his own betrayal at the hands of Judas, John 13:18. The question may be raised, if Jesus could read Judas' mind and know what he was planning, why does it say, in whom I trusted? Doesn't that imply that Judas tricked him in some way? Or that Jesus didn't know what was about to happen? I mean, how can you trust someone that you know is going to betray you? Isn't that a contradiction in terms? I think the simplest explanation is the correct one. Jesus trusted Judas in spite of the betrayal that he would do. Jesus treated Judas like a friend and a brother because to Jesus, that's exactly what Judas was, right up until the moment that he actually betrayed him. In other words, despite knowing what Judas was planning, Jesus continued to speak kindly toward him, continued to confide in him, and continued to break bread with him. It's a reminder of our own free will. God knows what we're going to do, but still it's up to us to do those things. Salvation is available when we choose to do wrong, even to the point of betrayal. But the Lord, despite knowing our choice, is not going to interfere. He doesn't with Judas. He won't with us. The most he will do, as he does for us all, is die on the cross so that we could have a second chance to make the right choice. And I pray that we all do. Thank God for that option given to us through Calvary. It is Thursday, March 26th. And my prayer for you today is that you will dwell in the shadow of God's hand, because the sun is very bright and it's very hot. It's not as hot as it's going to be, but it is hot and it blinds and it hurts. If you're out in it too long, you will burn, especially if you're very pale and very bald. You will burn. But then you find a little shade. You find something to block the light of the sun, and you get to experience and enjoy all the benefits of the sun without the bad stuff. God can be a consuming fire, the Hebrews writer says. God can be a terrifying, oppressive, terrible in the classical sense of the word, terrible thing, a thing that inspires, a being that inspires terror in his enemies. But to his children who are faithful, to his beloved sons and daughters, he invites you to rest in the shadow, in the hollow of his hand, and let him just scoop you and cradle you and shade you from all that other stuff that everyone who's not in his careful grasp will have to deal with. My prayer for you is that you will self-evaluate and you will ask yourself, am I in the hollow of God's hand or out? If I'm out, it's oppressive. If I'm in, it's soothing. And if you're out, I pray that you will take the steps necessary, outlined for you in the New Testament, to be right in his sight once more. God bless.